Portugal introduces a new scheme for tax benefits, and this scheme is different than what we're used to or what we've had before. I think a lot of people that are not familiar with this new scheme has been too quick to get depressed and abandon their plans to move to Portugal. In some cases, it's justified, and we're going to cover that. In some cases, the new scheme is better than what we had in the past. It's called a tax incentive for research and innovation, science research and innovation. We call it at Fresh TISRI, and we hope that this name will catch. So TISRI is the new tax scheme. Let's start perhaps with the benefits of the scheme. Pedro, what if I qualify for TISRI, and we will touch on qualification later because this is actually where the big difference is, but assuming I do qualify for TISRI, what do I get from Portugal?
So the new scheme actually provides some benefits that resembles old strategies and old schemes. However, specifically for the TISRI, if you fill up all the requirements that we're gonna cover soon, the benefits are, first, we need to separate what it is Portuguese sourced income and what it is foreign sourced income. For Portuguese sourced income, the benefits are actually restricted to the activities that you will perform here, which, as we will see, are quite relevant for the requirements. And it's basically a special rate, a fixed rate of 20% applied to your employment income or self-employment income. And when we speak about foreign sourced income, we will have the benefit of the exemption applied to employment, self-employment, capital income, capital gains, and royalties.
So the first exercise is figure out if my income is created in Portugal or if my income is created overseas.
Exactly.
If in Portugal, it's 20%, and if it's overseas, it's a zero.
It's zero, and the 20% that it's applied to Portugal, it's restricted to categories A and B. They are actually connected to the requirements that we're gonna talk some.
Great. So let's talk about these requirements. But yeah, John, actually before that, pension is the big loser, right? Pension's gone.
Precisely, and when we compare to old schemes like the NHR, where the pension had benefits in the beginning, it was an exemption, then it became a 10% flat rate for the pensions that were received. Under the TISRI, actually, there are no benefits to pension at all. Even if it is foreign sourced, it will be taxed accordingly to the standard rates in Portugal.
But conversely, capital gains from overseas are covered, which they haven't been covered before.
So at least, so it says the law, that the previous requirements that were common to the NHR, that foreign sourced income only had the exemption if they were potentially taxed in another jurisdiction. Now, there is no mention to this specific requirement for foreign sourced income. So if you have foreign sourced capital gains, it's no more a problem that they are not potentially taxed in another jurisdiction accordingly to the double taxation treaty applicable to the case.
So if I am a securities investor, I have a portfolio of shares, or if I'm, say, a tech founder who is considering selling his company, then the new scheme, at least in terms of benefits, is actually better for me.
Yeah, it will be better because all this kind of gains, when they are incurred in Portuguese territory, they should be taxed either at 28% or at the standard rates, depending on how long you have hold them. But with the new scheme, if you qualify under the requirements established in law, if you incur in this gain, you will be exempt.
Fantastic. So let's talk about that qualification. Unlike before, now you have to meet the qualification criteria, and the law treats differently people who live on the islands and people who live in the mainland. Maybe we will start with the islands because there's so little we know about that.
Yeah, precisely. Just to mention that there is still a fixed requirement that Brazil's the NHR that you need to be a new resident in Portugal, which means you can have been a tax resident in the past 5 years, and these benefits will also apply for the next 10 years, including your first tax residency year. And one of those requirements, one of the major categories, it will be that you are somehow tied to the islands in Portugal, Madeira, Açores, and this setting is still to be established by a regulatory decree in Portugal, where we will have a better notion of what kind of specific ties you need to have with the islands, if it's either be a tax resident with an address in Madeira, for example, or if you need to have an employment link with a company that is established in Madeira, or if you need to perform services from Madeira itself, and how that will be actually how that will see.
Yeah, so for the benefit of understand the
tax authority.
Essentially what the government has done is give the autonomous regions, which is the Madeira and the Açores, the autonomy to decide who gets this status living on the island, and they haven't done that yet. And we fully expect them to do it, and for the standard to be wider and more comprehensive than the mainland, but we don't know because it hasn't happened yet.
Yep.
Okay, so we keep an eye on that. I mean, we will say that, or I will say that my passion to Madeira is well known, and I've always thought that Madeira is a fantastic investment opportunity. So anyone who was thinking about an investment at this point and wants to consider the fact that there's now another tax incentive, because whoever comes to the island is almost certainly going to enjoy an easier route into this new scheme, then before it actually kicks in, might actually be a good time to think of investing in the island. So then there's the mainland, and the mainland is there are a number of criteria that are quite hard to fit, and then there's the startup one that was added recently. So can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Sure. We have some requirements that, of course, refer to specific positions in the investment market, and they're quite hard to fit because it's not only a requirement from the taxpayer, but also from the companies that hires them. However, the startup that was added before, that was added after an adjustment to the budget, refer to any kind of position that a certain taxpayer who fits all the other requirements have with a startup. It will eventually lead to these benefits of the TISRI. And in order to have this link with a company that it is recognized with as a startup, the company itself needs a certification as a startup, or it needs to have a venture capitalist or an angel investor, a certified angel investor, somehow investing in the company to make it recognized as a startup and a company that can provide positions that will lead to the benefits of the TISRI.
So from a practical perspective, if someone is working at the moment in another country and they want to come to Portugal, they don't want to live on the islands, they want to come and live on the mainland next to us in Lisbon, and they want to benefit from that scheme. And there are at least two routes that seem to be the main kind of the main avenues to obtain this status. One is to set up a company and obtain startup certification, right? And then the startup certification can either be directly for the startup, or it can be through an investment from a certified investor, and that can be an angel investor or a VC. But you don't have to set up a startup. You can take a position in an existing startup. I think for us specifically, we're taking interest in people who are considering, for example, becoming involved angel investors, because investment doesn't give you the status, but it's that position, such as a management position or a director position in a company, that could fit you into that scheme.
Yeah, exactly. It's worth mentioning that this position that I was mentioning for the startup is not restricted only to the employees of the company, but also the board members of the company, or at least as a translation can be done from the Portuguese legislation to English. And these positions as board members could be explored for investors, as you said.
And there's no requirement that all of your income will then come from that particular position in either your own company or a company that you've taken some role in. It's sufficient that there will be some income from that company.
Exactly. The requirements does not restrict what kinds of streams of income you can have, as long as one of them does actually come from one of the certified companies, or if you eventually have some ties with the islands, eventually this could lead to the benefits that will be applied certainly to other streams of income, especially if you have foreign associate income.
So I suppose it's fair to say that the obvious cases are the people who are actually going to be establishing a full-on proper startup company, and they've now been handed over a huge incentive to do that in Portugal. But people who are working in kind of various consulting roles, which represent a large proportion of our client base, and they are willing to either establish a company in Portugal and try and seek that certification, which they can do before coming, so they can have some clarity on that, or take an active role in an existing company, which we will be supporting people in finding these opportunities. They could end up with this highly lucrative tech status, arguably exactly what the government's trying to do, encourage the tech industry, and contribute to the Portuguese economy and benefit from these tax breaks.
Precisely. It's basically a balance between the benefits that maybe we had before in other schemes, and benefits for the Portuguese economy, not only for the taxpayer. And that's the balance the Portuguese is trying to find now. And still, it's an excellent opportunity and with excellent benefits. And that will certainly retrieve a lot of people with these intentions of investing in another jurisdiction, of developing new projects, especially with this startup program.
Right. A really interesting. I want to circle back. I mean, so we understand that the new program is more meant for people who come and want to keep working in Portugal or work in Portugal, and is meant to benefit the tech industry in some way, but or the islands in some way. But it's people with pension. So some people have pension and they just can't get it out. It's stuck in the pension fund, and then they're going to have pension income and have full taxation. But since people who couldn't fit into that regime will have full exemption over, for example, dividend or capital gains, is converting their pension savings to investment products a viable strategy to help people with pension?
Considering only the Portuguese taxation, certainly, if they want and if they have the requirements to fit on the TISRI, certainly having all the streams of income rather than pension, especially if they are foreign associate, it will make more sense from the Portuguese tax liability point of view.
And so you have to consider the penalty if there is one versus Portuguese.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I think that covers TISRI well, at least as much as we know about it. We will keep an eye on how it evolves and what Madeira does, and how it's actually implemented, because the implementation is yet to be seen.
Yes.
And we'll keep you posted. Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you.